Hey, I'm Dr. Kenneth Q with UDoc Direct Primary Care, and I'm joined by Andy Schoonover with CrowdHealth. Thanks for joining me this morning, Andy.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
We're exploring alternatives to the traditional health insurance model, and you've created something called CrowdHealth. So, what exactly is CrowdHealth, and what are some of the frustrations that led you to create this?
Yeah, oftentimes innovation comes out of irritation. So this is my second healthcare company. I sold my first one, and as such, I didn't have health insurance because most of us get health insurance through our employer. And so I went to the Affordable Care Act because I thought it was my only option. And I kind of joked it worked until I had to use it. My little one was having recurring ear infections. And so I went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor who told me she had a hole in her eardrum and that we could get that fixed pretty easily with just getting tubes in her ears. And it was a 15-minute procedure, no big deal. So we got that scheduled. We went in network. We did everything right. And then got the bill a few weeks later, and it was $8,000 for a 15-minute procedure. I was just like, wow, like $8,000. But this is what health insurance is for. Like, this is the whole point of having health insurance. So I didn't think too much of it until I got another note a few weeks after that from my health insurance plan. And they said that it was medically unnecessary. And so they weren't going to pay for it. And so after 2 rounds of appeals, they were like, nope, we're not paying for it. So I had to stroke an $8,000 check for this procedure. And as you can probably imagine, I was a bit ticked. And so it was at that point where I was like, something has to be done here. Our system is so incredibly broken for the vast majority of people that something has to be done. And so I called my health insurance plan and I canceled. If you're not paying my bills, I'm not paying your bills. And so I canceled. I went to my wife. I was like, so we're uninsured. And she said, excuse me? And so over the next 12 months, I came to realize that if you were to pay these bills directly, as opposed to paying them through health insurance, those bills will come down drastically. So I got a number of messages on X when I was doing as Twitter at the time. They're like, oh yeah, you're $8,000. We don't do those in our office for like $2,000 all day long. And I'm like, what? Like I could have gotten this done for $2,000 instead of $8,000. And so I just realized that if you can pay in cash or pay your doctor directly, it's way, way less. And so we said, I bet you we can figure out a way to enable people to pay large and small bills by paying direct as opposed to going through health insurance. And so we founded the company in 2021. And over the last, I guess, almost 5 years now, we're 4.5 years in, I guess, we've gotten 25,000 bills funded. 99.9% of the time that we submit them to the community, they get funded. And these are small bills like pediatric visits to really huge bills. Like we have a member right now at MD Anderson doing some cancer treatment, which is, as you can probably imagine, a really, really big bill. So that's kind of the background of the company. It's been going great. We saved people almost $50 million over the last 5 years in their medical costs. And so, we're off to the races.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So you mentioned paying directly. CrowdHealth is a little different in that you're kind of pulling a community together to help each other out. And so when there is a medical bill, how does that work? What does that look like for people who are on your platform?
Yeah, it depends upon the situation. There's kind of three situations in which you'll find yourself. One is just going for a normal routine doctor visit, right? You have your annual exam, for example, and that's $200 or $300 generally. And so you go in and you can actually pay those directly with a credit card and then submit those bills to us. And then we'll submit them to the community. And typically within 7 days, you'll get that money funded from the community. So that's when you pay up front. Otherwise, that's the only really situation in which you have to pay up front. For the big scheduled events, so let's say you tear your ACL or something, and that's a $20,000 surgery. You let us know that you tore your ACL. We will help you find a really great doc to do your ACL repair in your city. Or if you have a doc that you really like, you can do that too. We will go get that funded for you so that when you show up to your surgery, you actually have the money to pay the doc directly. So the doc gets paid directly before the surgery actually happens. And with this, it's great because he or she doesn't have to worry about billing doctors or fighting for pre-auths or any of these things. And so they love that. And as a result of that, they're giving way, way better prices than through health insurance. The third situation is when you go to the ER. you want you to go to the ER whenever you need to go to the ER. So you go to the ER and typically you get those bills afterwards. And so if you get those bills in the mail, you'll get the bill, you take our app, you'll take a picture of the bill. We will then evaluate it on the back end to make sure it's a fair price. If it's not a fair price, we have a team internally, including attorneys, who will help negotiate that bill with the hospital. We'll get it funded from the community so that then you can pay the hospital directly. So those are the kind of three situations in which you typically will find yourself when you're paying medical bills and the way that it works. Our members have found it to be super easy. I mean, I think that, the maybe the one downside, if there is a downside of Crowd Health, is it's not just laying down your insurance card and then forgetting about it. Because when you do that, you typically have to deal with the pain on the back end because you get denials or you get, these explanation of benefits that don't explain really anything. The math doesn't make sense. You get these bills 6 or 12 months later. And so there's a lot of pain that happens. Well, all we're asking for you is to let us know if you have a big event, hopefully before the big event happens, like a knee replacement or something like that, or as soon as you can after the big event happens. So if you go to the ER, so it takes one little step. But the cool thing that we've done is not like you're letting us know via a call center or something like that. One of the things I hated about health insurance is, in my situation with my daughter, I had a call center and I had to wait on the line for 20 or 25 minutes to talk to somebody and they couldn't help me. And so they pitched me over to somebody else where I had to wait for 20 or 25 minutes and they couldn't help me. And so, kind of getting bounced around a health insurance plan. With Crowd Health, you actually have a care advocate internally. So every time you talk to somebody internally at Crowd Health, you're talking to a care advocate. So it's the same person every time. Now, when you have a really big event, we bring some other people on the team to help along the way, but like your main point of contact is one person. So they're responsible for getting your solutions to you, in a really timely manner. So, anytime you need help, you just call him or her and they'll help you out and explain to you how this happens. And people have really, really enjoyed it. It's such a kind of juxtaposition versus, health insurance and the way that people think that, getting your medical bills paid should look like. So it's been a delight.
Yeah, that's great. And so just to expand real quick, you mentioned that the bills are getting paid, but also there's some navigation on the back end, right? You mentioned that
Yeah.
Care navigator, because to your point, like your daughter's ear tube, which was $8,000 that you could have got through 2000. That's what these kind of care navigator advocates are doing for your members. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've built this database now that's pretty substantial, and in all major metropolitan areas, most secondary and some tertiary areas, we'll know where the best orthopedic surgeon is. We'll know the best ear, nose, and throat doctor. We'll know the best gastro. And so if you call us, we can get you to a really great doc who we know is going to charge a fair price. And so it's something like 80% of the time people will call us to find that information. And the more they call us and let us know that they have a big event coming, then the easier it is for us to get them to a fair price doctor. And so that's helped really keep these medical bills, down for the community. It's been super helpful.
Yeah, that's great. So in the traditional insurance model, there's a ton of regulation to make sure that claims are paid, right? Even if they get around it with not medically necessary and all that stuff, but there is regulation in place. So how do you build trust in this kind of crowd sharing network that you've built to make sure that all the medical bills do get paid when they happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a lot of regulation, and I think that people, I think naively think that the regulation forces health plans to actually get the bills paid. And I think what we have seen, Kaiser Family Foundation came out with something on 2020, I think 25 was their latest, maybe it was 24, but about 20% of bills are actually denied. You have a 1 out of 5 chance of getting your bill denied. I unfortunately was the 1 out of 5. And so even though there is regulation, it's still the bills, a lot of these bills are not getting paid. I think it was something like 2 million bills in Texas alone were not paid in the last year. And so that's a problem. And it's such a problem that about 3/4 of people who go bankrupt do so because of medical bills. And 3/4 of them actually have health insurance. So you're having health insurance. The vast majority of people who go bankrupt have health insurance and still go bankrupt due to a medical expense, which is telling me that the health insurance is not working despite all these regulations. And so what we do is we say, look, we want to be totally transparent with you and show you all the bills that have come in, and then we'll give you the results of those bills. So every single bill that comes through the doors of CrowdHealth, we put it on our website. It's on our homepage. It's a link to it right on our homepage. So you can see what the bill is, what the funding status is, how many of these bills gotten funded. And the way that we build trust is just to be wickedly transparent. And so people can see it almost real time. We do at the beginning of the next month, we propose the previous month. So you can see it almost in real time, what's going on with these bills. And so we just want to be super, super transparent. So that's the number one way, is just be transparency. I think the second way is that we have been incredibly blessed with a great group of members who are willing to share their experiences. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is a new way. Feeling uninsured is almost feels like I'm breaking the rules or something. And so we've got these group of members who, are willing to go out there and actually share their stories of how CrowdHealth took really, really good care of them. And it's through these stories and through these narratives that I think that people really understand what our company is about and what our values are. And I think create some trust in them. Let me give you just one quick example. We had a little kid in Colorado who's hiking with his dad. He fell, he hit a rock, his face hit a rock, and he had to have stitches down the side of his face. So that got fully funded by the community. No big deal. It wasn't that big of a bill. But when we called his mom and we were like, hey, how's he doing? And he's like, well, physically he's doing great because, he's healed up. He looks great. Emotionally, he's having some challenges because he's afraid to go back on a hike with his dad. And so one of our care advocates sent him a little climbing set that he put in his living room to get him accustomed to kind of going back and doing hiking with his dad. And so then his mom called a couple weeks later and said, guess what? He's back hiking with his dad. Right. So the fact that we like truly do try to love our members really, really well is, I think, and then the members telling stories about that to their friends, their family, and their social media platforms and all of that kind of things, I think is something that's built up trust within our community about, like, who are these people about? What is this company about? And I think people have come to the conclusion that we're on their side. We want to get their bills paid. One last thing, and I'll stop rambling. I'm sorry. But I think the big thing here too is the incentive structure. Because if you think about health insurance, they make more money when your bills don't get paid, right? So they bring in premiums, they have claims against those premiums, and the difference, how much they take in versus how much they pay, is their profit. Well, if they pay less, their profit is more. If they pay more, their profit is less. So there's a perverse incentive there. Not only that, but with the Affordable Care Act, these health insurance plans actually are incentivized to see prices go up. As I know, medical loss ratios are a big deal within health insurance. And what that means is that if my family pays $1,000 to the health insurance plans, they can only make 15% on that. So $150. So these are mostly, publicly or privately held companies. And so they want to grow their profits. So how do they get their profit from 150 to 165? Grow at 10%. Well, your premiums have to go from 1,000 to 1,100. So they actually want your premiums to go up over the long term. And the short term, they want to decline your bills. And those two ways they make money. For us, it's a subscription fee. You pay us every month as a subscription fee, whether the bills get paid or don't get paid. And therefore, we have an incentive now to get these bills paid, because they're not paid. Guess what? Ken is going to go on, Twitter or X and say, I'm a part of this CrowdHealth. They didn't pay my bills. And we would be toast, right? So we actually have an incentive to get your bills paid. We have an incentive for the bills to go down, because the lower our cost is, the cost of having CrowdHealth, the more people that we get in, the more money we make. And so our incentives are totally aligned with our members. And that's what's, I think, cool about our structure versus health insurance. And I think you're seeing that with all the online reviews. And if you follow us on Twitter, you'll see, testimonials and things like that. That's why I think that alignment of incentives is key to what makes us work really well.
Nice. That's awesome. And I guess on that note about the community, who would you say is a good fit for CrowdHealth? And is there anybody or any type of person who may not be the best fit for CrowdHealth?
Yeah. About 80% of our customers are in a situation in which they're not getting health insurance from their employer. So these are people who work in small businesses, they're entrepreneurs, they're 1099s, they're freelancers, gig workers, those types of people. That's about 80% of our customers. And then the number one is kind of entrepreneurs. Funny enough, number two is clinicians. So I think it's like they see it firsthand, the brokenness of this system. And what I've heard now is that a lot of hospitals have pretty garbage insurance options. So, a lot of them are coming over to us. So 80% are people who don't typically get health insurance through their employer. 20% are ones who have the option of getting health insurance through their employer, but it's getting more and more and more expensive. And so they know that health insurance has perverse incentives. They know that it's getting expensive. And so they've declined their employer's insurance. And then they've come over to CrowdHealth. And so those are kind of the groups of people that have joined to date. The only groups that aren't great for CrowdHealth are if you're a smoker, we don't allow smokers in the community. We want a community of people who, take care of themselves and treat their bodies well. So no smokers. If you're over 260, if you're a male, or 240, if you're a female, we want you to get within a healthy weight before joining the community. And then just for regulatory reasons, we can't serve anybody over 65. So those are the kind of the parameters for joining. Otherwise, there's no background check or health status check or anything like that. It's just we ask you, are you a smoker? Are you over 260? Are you over 65? And if you say yes to any of those, then you can't join the community. Otherwise, we'd love to have you.
Gotcha. And then in terms of like alternatives to health insurance, I wouldn't say it's mainstream yet, but another option is the health sharing ministries.
Uh-huh.
How would you say you guys compared to the health sharing ministries?
Yeah, I think there's a number of healthcare ministries that do really, really good work. I think that there's others that have a really bad reputation, and rightfully so. And so you have to choose your health share appropriately. I think that there's a couple different differentiators. The mechanics for how we actually go out and fund bills is very different than the vast majority of the health shares. We go out and ask people. So if we have a $5,000 bill, we'll go ask 100 people or 50 people for $100. And then you can actually say yes or no on that. I mean, if you say yes, then $100 goes from your account to the asking person's account. And if you say no, then we'll just ask the next person. And so the health shares don't typically work that way. I think they say it's voluntary, but if you don't pay it, they'll boot you out. So it's not really voluntary. And, I think that this navigation component that I talked about and this navigation and negotiation, I think we do really, really well. And I don't think the health shares generally do that. In fact, MediShare, which is the biggest one, is actually on a network. So it's on a health insurance plan, multi-plan network. And so you're getting the same rates that an insurance plan would get. So our big key differentiator is that, you pay directly, and therefore you're getting much, much better prices than what the health insurance plan. So I would steer clear of these health shares that are on networks. And, the only other thing I would watch out for is that a lot of them have maximums. If another one of these plans have like a maximum, I think in your first year of $100,000. So they'll only fund up to $100,000 of your medical expenses, which is pretty tough if you get into a car accident or get cancer or have a NICU baby or any of these things. We've had lots and lots and lots of those. And so, from my perspective, it's like the whole point of this is like to help out in case of the really, really big ones that could put you in serious financial distress. And sure, $100,000 bill puts you in serious financial distress, but so does $1 million bill. And so we're trying to help with the really, really big ones. Yeah, I mean, and the other kind of obvious differentiator for the health shares, you typically have to be faith-based. And so we don't have any faith-based component to what we do. So anybody of any faith or no faith can join us if they'd like.
All right, very good. And so we've had 100 years now, give or take, of people getting used to health insurance and paying for healthcare through health insurance. And
Yeah,
even as things kind of fall apart, a lot of people are still really nervous about getting off of healthcare, just like or health insurance.
sure.
Like your wife said when you told her you were uninsured, just wait, what? So for
Yeah.
people who are looking for alternatives but are nervous, what kind of advice would you give them? How would you help them kind of explore your option and go uninsured?
Yeah. I look at this, and the whole point of me like starting this company is because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with health insurance and their inability to pay. And so I think, do any kind of reading on the internet, or probably even your own experience, you're probably frustrated or see a lot of frustration. Why is that? Because it's hard getting these bills, paid, all these kinds of things. And so I think it's actually, I don't know, for me, it feels more risky to have health insurance than it does Crowd Health. Like I said, 99.9% of the bills have gotten paid that went to the community for funding. And it was like, 81% of health insurance bills get paid. And so we're actually doing a better job of getting these paid than health insurance companies. And I think people are always kind of worried about the big one, right? Like, what about the big one? And so, we've had, I think 3 dozen, somewhere around there, cancer cases. Like I said, we have a member at MD Anderson right now. We have a a member internally at our team who has cancer, who's on Crowd Health. So we're walking with it through her. We've had massive NICU babies. We had a guy who shot himself accidentally. One bullet, 6 holes. He was out in. This is one of those things where it's like, hey, some of the people watching this may not have anything. Like, they don't have a health share, they don't have health insurance. They're just completely, uninsured, which is fine. But I would say, this guy was in Montana fishing. He was in bear country, so he had a gun in his holster to make sure that the bear doesn't get him. He caught a fish. He leaned down. The gun fell out of his holster, hit a rock perfectly, went into his calf, out the back of his calf, into his thigh, out the top of his thigh, into his chest, and out the back. One bullet, 6 holes, had to get medevaced out. The helicopter had to basically land in the middle of the stream to get him out of there because it was 2 hours away from the nearest hospital. It was $1 million bill. And we went in, we negotiated it for him. We got it funded for him. And now he's our biggest advocate. He's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was dead and I was going to be bankrupt. My wife was going to be bankrupt. And now I'm alive. And, you guys got these bills funded for me. And all he had to do is pay $500 out of pocket for almost $1 million bill. So, what I would say is when you have something, let's just say, God forbid, you go into the ER today, what are you worried about? You're probably worried about, one, your health, and two, how the heck are you going to pay this because you have a huge deductible with your health plan. And is the health plan going to pay it? People have this mentality, and I think it's a right one. Now I have to go fight with health insurance to get this paid. So we're not fight with Crowd Health. It's like, oh, now I get to join with Crowd Health to fight the system to get this bill paid, as opposed to fighting the payer who, as we mentioned before, has an incentive to actually deny your bill as opposed to approve your bill. And so, like, get on a team of people who are incentively aligned with you. The incentives are aligned and has shown a really good history of getting these bills paid. And that would be my pitch. If you don't like health insurance, you're probably paying way too much for it. And Crowd Health, for a family of 5 this month, Crowd Health is, let's see, 255 plus 220. It would be 475. 475 for a family of 4 this month. I'm sure you're paying more than that with your health insurance plan if you don't have subsidies. And if you have subsidies, guess what? They're probably going away at the end of the year. So you should be starting to look at something else. So it's a very reasonable cost for these families.
Yeah, that's great. And just to close, anything else you want to add that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, joincrowdhealth.com is where you need to go. It takes like 5 minutes if you're a single person, or 10 minutes if you're a family, to sign up. You can sign up whenever you want. You can cancel whenever you want. And so we'd love to have you as a part of the Crowd Health fam.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining, Andy. And this was really great information.
Thanks, man.